Welcome to Dinopedia, your dinosaurs channel. What is its name? This dinosaur's name is Aardonyx Celestae. Aardonyx comes from Afrikaner and the word ard means land, and from Greek the word onyx means claw, altogether meaning claw of the earth. What is its size? Aardonyx Celestae was about 7 to 8 meters long, 1.7 meters at the hips, and weighed about 500 kilograms. What did it look like? The characteristics of their arms and their feeding are intermediate between the Prosauropods and the Sauropods. Thus, by showing how bipedal and light animals began to acquire characteristics of quadrupedal giants, Aardonyx proves to be a link between the evolution of the two groups. It had a narrow jaw, a long neck and tail, a small head, and a lowered body. It is important to note that the Aardonyx already had powerful thigh muscles and a slow walk, typical of the great sauropods that would appear later. It shares some attributes with giant quadrupedal sauropods like Apatosaurus. Aardonyx shows a transition toward the bulk browsing form of feeding characteristic of sauropods. The jaws of Aardonyx are narrow and V-shaped with a pointed symphysis, a plesiomorphic characteristic shared with other basal sauropodomorphs. In sauropods, the jaws are broad and U-shaped to allow for a wider bite. The absence of a lateral ridge at the caudal end of the dentary is indicative of a loss of fleshy cheeks. This is seen as an adaptation for a wider gape to facilitate in bulk browsing, and is observed in nearly all sauropods. The lateral neurovascular foramina of the maxilla of Aardonyx are smaller than those of other basal sauropodomorphs, and indicate that there was a reduction in blood supply to the buccal tissues and thus a loss of fleshy cheeks. The development of lateral plates along the alveolar margins of some bones of the skull would have helped brace the lingual sides of the teeth against buccolingual forces during foliage stripping. The presence of plesiomorphic V-shaped jaws along with the absence of fleshy cheeks is an unusual characteristic of Aardonyx. Previously, it was thought that broader jaws evolved prior to the reduction and loss in fleshy cheeks as an adaptation toward bulk browsing in sauropods. The sauropod Chinchakiongosaurus possessed jaws that were U-shaped, while still retaining fleshy cheeks, the opposite of the condition seen in Aardonyx. Because Chinchakiongosaurus is a more derived sauropodomorph, this suggests that a wide, cheekless gape may have evolved twice in Sauropodomorpha, once with Aardonyx and again with sauropods more advanced than Chinchakiongosaurus. What did it eat? It was herbivorous, and probably ate relatively high plant leaves. Where did it live? Aardonyx Celestae lived in the forests of South Africa. When did it live? Aardonyx Celestae is a sauropodomorph dinosaur that lived in the Jurassic period 200 to 195 million years ago. How did it behave? It was herbivore and had a mostly bipedal lifestyle. These animals probably spent most of their lives eating leaves, fighting and running from large predators. Based on the structure of the hind limbs and pelvic girdle of Aardonyx, the dinosaur normally moved bipedally but could drop to quadrupedal movement similar to Iguanodon. Characteristics of the limbs of Aardonyx suggest that it was habitually bipedal. Evidence for bipedalism can be seen in the forelimbs. The structure of the radius and ulna limited the degree to which the manus could be pronated, and the length of the humerus is only 72% that of the femur. However, characteristics found in both the fore and hind limbs of Aardonyx show a trend toward more habitual quadrupedalism that would eventually lead to the obligatory quadrupedalism seen in sauropods. How was it discovered? It was described based on only disjointed bones of two immature individuals, close to 10 years of age, so adults should be older, reaching 10 meters. Discovered in 2009 by paleontologists from Johannesburg, South Africa, it received a name from Celeste Yates, who prepared most of the first fossil material of the species. The name, which means claw of the earth, was given by the fact that the great claws of the feet were some of the first bones excavated. Australian paleontologist Adam Yates and his team's discovery of the genus was published online before print in Proceedings of the Royal Society B in November 2009, and was scheduled to appear in the March 2010 issue. The genus is known from disarticulated bones belonging to two immature individuals. The material consists of cranial elements, vertebrae, dorsal and cervical ribs, gastrolea, chevrons, elements of the pectoral and pelvic girdles, and bones of the fore and hind limbs, manus, and pes. The presence of these bones in a single dense accumulation in a localized channel fill suggests that they came from relatively complete carcasses. 4. Both individuals are thought to have been less than 10 years old at the time of their death because of the lack of peripheral rest lines in the cortices of sampled bones. Additional evidence for immaturity at the time of death includes calcified cartilage at the articular end of the scapula. Additional information. British paleontologist Paul Barrett of the Natural History Museum, London, who was not involved in the research, commented that the discovery of Aardonyx helps to fill a marked gap in our knowledge of sauropod evolution, showing how a primarily two-legged animal could start to acquire the specific features necessary for a life spent on all fours. According to Dr. Matthew Bonin, a co-author on the study, we already knew that the earliest sauropods and near sauropods would be bipeds. What Aardonyx shows us, however, is that walking quadrupedally and bearing weight on the inside of the foot is a trend that started very early in these dinosaurs, much earlier than previously hypothesized. Bonin adds, on a scientific level, it's really fulfilling to have a hypothesis on how you think dinosaurs got large, then to test that in the field and get back these kind of data. A new dinosaur that really does start to fill in some of those anatomical gaps. What is not yet known about it? There is a long and ongoing debate about which prosauropods were bipeds, or were not bipeds. Reptile data. Scientific classification edit. Kingdom. Animalia. Phylum. Chordata. Clade. Dinosauria. Clade. Saurischia. Suborder. Sauropodomorpha. Clade. Anchosauria. Genus. Aardonyx. By Adam Yates, 2010. Species. A. Celestae. Binomial name. Aardonyx Celestae. By Adam Yates, 2010. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Goodbye.